Wow. This book, I have spent the last 48 hours devouring this book, unpacking this book, and allowing my own subconscious to do some healing. But we've got a dilemma, my friends. We have two options with this book. Number one, you can just use this as another opportunity to project your own internal fear, shame, guilt, sadness, hurt, pain, etc. onto the villains in Britney's story. Or option number two, you can use this book as an opportunity to heal your own wounds with the villains in your own life. The first option will keep you stuck in a state of fear. But the second option will allow you to begin to open that door to where unconditional love and true authenticity exists. This video is not a video to support you in once again passing the buck and remaining the victim of your own dream. Let's face it, everyone has, quote, villains, unquote, in their life until they don't. Welcome back, my friends, to another Healing Through the Lens with your favorite trauma coach, Ashley. We are here today to utilize Britney's book as an opportunity for our own healing. Yes, that is this week's trip, so strap yourself in because we are getting nostalgic here and we are going to follow along our own healing journey with one of our favorite celebrities that we just grew up with. So again, strap in and let's take a trip to her childhood. I want to start there in Britney's childhood. I think in the book, there is two key narratives that present themselves. And those key narratives continuously play out in her life. So let me read you one of the first quotes from the book in regards to how she felt as a child. Here we go. At that age, my favorite thing to do besides spending time with Lexi was hiding in cabinets. It became a family joke. Where's Britney now? At my aunt's house, I always disappeared. Everyone would mount a search for me. Just when they'd start to panic, they'd open a cabinet door and there I'd be. I must have wanted them to look for me. For years, that was my thing to hide. Hiding was one way I got attention. I also loved dancing and singing. I sang in the choir of our church, and I took dance classes 3 nights a week on Saturdays. Then I had a gymnastics classes an hour away in Covington, Louisiana. When it came to dancing and singing and acrobatics, I couldn't get enough. Both things could be true. Crouched in the cool darkness of a cabinet, I felt so small I could disappear. But with everyone's eyes on me, I became something else. Someone who could command a room. In white tights, belting out a song, I felt like anything was possible. Wow, how powerful. What it represents is this constant conflict of see me, don't see me. And the truth is, when we are seeking others to see us, seeking control of others, it's really a mirror of that we don't feel that control within. And if you read the book, you see that Britney felt very out of control a lot of her childhood and projected much of that lack of control outside of herself. At one point, her brother gets into an accident and she needs to sleep with him every night because she needs to protect him. Not because, in fact, she needs to protect him, but because she needs that own protection herself. So instead of knowing the way to give it to yourself, and then at that point as a child, we rely on our parents to provide us that protection, she projects out what she actually needs internally. As the book progresses, Britney is constantly in this state of hiding and commanding attention. But the perspective is so different from person to person. This media portrayed her in a certain way, and now we're seeing from Britney's side the way in which she saw it. That's the really tricky thing here, is because perception is individually based. It doesn't have a universal definition because we see things through the lens of our narratives, our past traumas. And one of the main narratives also in Britney's life is the villain narrative. And I think we relate with Britney so much because we all have the villain narrative in our life. There is always someone we can blame. And by no means am I saying this ill towards Britney, that she's playing the victim. I think she did an absolutely beautiful job of writing this book from just almost like an observer's perspective. She kept out a lot of her own opinions and she was graceful to those villains in her life, and also showed the ownership that she took in it and that she went with things and she felt that she couldn't step forward. So I'm not saying, oh, Britney deserved this, but I'm showing you that our internal belief system, our internal narratives are what become projected outside of us. And Britney, her projection, she mentions multiple times that since a little girl, she felt shame and that she was bad. I have another quote in here from her in regards to that I want to read to you. As a child, I'd always had a guilty conscience, a lot of shame, a sense that my family thought I was just plain bad. The sadness and the loneliness that would hit me felt like my fault somehow, like I deserved unhappiness and bad luck. I knew the truth of our relationship was nothing like how it was being portrayed, but I still imagined that if I was suffering, I must have deserved it. Along the line, surely I'd done bad things. I believe in karma, and so when bad things happen, I imagine that it's just the law of karma catching up with me. It's such a belief of all of ours that if we are bad, therefore we deserve pain and suffering and to be the victim. But the truth is that is another construct by the ego to keep us stuck. We must suffer. And I think Britney goes back and forth between true love and authenticity, trying to discover that, and in this place of fear. And it plays out in a manner of fear altogether, but the story is she goes from victim to villain, victim to villain, victim to villain. And we read in this book that in fact, when she flips to villain, it is just the perspective. It is what everybody else is saying about her. But we see, in fact, she never was the villain. But she never stood up for herself because she felt she deserved this. She felt that, in fact, somehow she was bad. She was a bad person. Therefore, she would allow herself to slide into the villain persona by shaving her head, by attacking paparazzi, by all these different things. But when we see from her perspective that it was breaking points, that they wanted her to be the villain so bad, they pushed her back against the wall until they received a reaction from her that was that of a villain. But only were they able to receive that reaction from her because, in fact, a piece of her did believe she was the villain, did believe she was deserving of this pain and sacrifice throughout this entire book. The key villains in her life were Justin, Kevin, her mom and dad, Jamie Lynn, and the paparazzi. I think the paparazzi is really where it started in her actual career. And then we get to Justin. And it's interesting as well how all of these villains, Britney put so much of her weight on them. Her happiness backpack, she would give people, anyone who was willing to show her a little bit of support and love, her happiness backpack, her salvation, her internal peace and happiness. Which, again, that's what we're taught. So she was doing exactly what she was taught. And every single time, that person who couldn't feel her happiness backpack, not only did they not fill it for her, they also shredded it to pieces and created this image of her, of this monster to the world. And when someone creates an image of you as something, Even if at the beginning you don't believe it to be true, you start to believe it after it's been reiterated over and over again. And we see that with Britney. I believe from the beginning, she never knew who she was. She was groomed. She talks about being a people pleaser and needing to please everyone in her life. And to be honest, the majority of the everyone is us, guys. It's her fans. She had a certain persona to hold up, and anytime she strayed away from it, she became tabloid front page news about what's wrong with Britney. She's not a virgin. She's not a good role model for children, when she didn't technically sign up for that. She just wanted to follow her dreams. And we see that it takes a toll on her. And she even talks about when she's acting that she gets into this role and she misses the separation between reality, or what we believe to be reality, and her role. And I think that's because she never had the ability to really understand who she was. She was told who she was. She was told who she needed to be. And that's why, as well, when she gets these opportunities to explore who she is, you read in the book, she reverts back to childhood. And from the lens of, say, a trauma therapist, they would say that those are areas in which she is still seeking healing. It happens after she gives birth. It happens some traumatic times in her life when she is seen as very mentally ill. But it's interesting how she presents it in there. And I do agree with that, but I also see it as a very strong coping mechanism for her. Children are very forgiving, and they completely release all judgment, and they just love. Well, that's what Britney needed in that moment. So if she wasn't able to get it, then instead the next best thing to survive, right? This was a survival mechanism, was to become it. Because if she became it, she wasn't taking in all of the pain and suffering and the reality of her current situation. It was almost like a dissociation. And at one point she talks about being Benjamin Button. She would feel like she aged backwards. And I talk about that in my videos. Like, that is the goal. We spend half of our life learning to become an adult and the other half learning to become a child, like Pablo Picasso says. And I say, remembering that we are a child. And maybe some of those were glimpses into Britney's remembrance. And maybe you have experienced those too. But the truth is, there was so much power that lied in her ability to go in to a place where curiosity is so strong and judgment is almost non-existent. So we saw it as a bad thing, but was it really a bad thing? And it reminds us that we are constantly judging others, but we only judge them once we've judged ourselves. So are we truly allowing ourselves to heal in the manner in which works best for us, looks best for us? I always talk about that. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the level of form. Instead, it matters what's at the content. And if the content is coming from a place of unconditional love and healing, I don't give a rat's ass what it looks like at the level of form. That doesn't matter. But we put so much matter on the form, on what Britney looked like, how Britney showed up, what Britney did or did not do. And I think a lot of that was our own projection, our own fear of us being a bad mom, of us not adding up to be certain things in our life, of just so many different things. So instead of us really looking at our own fears within, we just use Britney to project it out, which we do that to other people. Granted, Britney's a celebrity, so we can use it more as a universal one. But we have people in our life we do that to. We create narratives in our mind that we need to project out instead of dealing with on our own. She even talks about becoming the villain, feeling as though she is the villain. But I want to focus more on the healing journey here. And I want to switch a little bit because it's really beautiful to see the glimpses of hope that are in here throughout her journey that I think helped her maintain the stability. And I do believe reverting to a child, as much as that is not supported by the mental health community, was a very beautiful coping mechanism for her. And I don't believe that anybody was in danger at any point. And I think it actually saved her from taking her own life on multiple occasions. So if that's the case, then why would we shun something so much? But in the mental health industry, that's not acceptable. You don't fit the mold of everybody else, therefore something is wrong with you. And we see that when the conservatorship happens. And yes, there's many conspiracies behind that. I'm not getting into that today. We're just going by what is in the book. But the conservatorship, it really turned her into this animal. It turned her into, you are not worthy. You are not worthy of being treated like a human. And she says that. She says that in there, that, can I just be treated like a human? Can I just have that honor? No matter how messed up the things I'm doing, can I just be treated like a human? But the truth is, a part of her believed that she was crazy. A part of her believed that she was not human. Otherwise, it would not have been projected out. Okay, back to the healing. At one point, she's driving through the desert with her friend and has this absolutely beautiful, what I would call experience of the oneness, of the pure love that does exist. And I think it's beautiful foreshadowing in the book, but it's beautiful foreshadowing in her life. She talks about in the book as well, no one can pray like her. Prayer is what has got her through the most of this. This part is early on in the book when she is driving down the road. As we looked out at the road stretched before us, an eerie feeling settled over me. I had been moving so fast for so long, it was like I couldn't even catch my breath. Now in the moment, something filled me, a profound beauty, otherworldly and humbling. I looked over at my friend, wondering if I should say something. But what could I say? Do you believe in aliens? So I stayed quiet and sat there with the feeling for a long moment. Then I heard her voice over the wind. Do you feel that? She said. She looked at me. What is that? Whatever it was, she felt it too. I reached for her hand and held it tight. The poet Rumi says the wound is the place where the light enters you. I have always believed that. The thing we felt that night in Arizona, we felt it at that moment because we needed it. We were so spiritually open and so raw. It showed us there was more than just what we could see. Call it God, call it a higher power, or call it a paranormal experience. Whatever it was real enough that we could experience it together. While it was first happening, I didn't want to bring it up to my friend because I was embarrassed. I was scared she would think that I'd lost my mind. There have been so many times when I was scared to speak up because I was afraid somebody would think I was crazy. But I've learned that lesson now, the hard way. You have to speak the thing that you are feeling, even if it scares you. You have to tell your story. You have to raise your voice. There was a lot I still had left to discover that night when I was lost and felt God in the desert. But I knew that I wouldn't let the darkness consume me. Even in the darkest night, you can still find so much light. Powerful, beautiful. It is a reminder to us that the light is always on. Yes, the light is always on. Even when you don't feel it, it is because you have chosen the darkness. Yep, radical self-ownership in this video, my friends. This is not about being the victim. This is about us realizing we are the dreamer of the dream. We are the dream. And Britney, in that moment, realized that the light is always there. Even in the darkest of times, or what feel to be the darkest of times, the light is always holding you, whether it's God, higher power, or an extraterrestrial experience, whatever you want to call it, there's some sort of light out there that is holding you. And she continues to go back to her spirituality and dabbles here and there in God. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what we label it, friends. We are so hung up on a label of what this unconditional love is, or who, or, what energy. But the truth is, that's again another smoke and mirrors. You are focused on the form, when in fact it is about the content. And when you focus on the form or the effect or the label, then you've missed it. You have completely missed it, and you've allowed the smoke and mirrors of the darkness, which is fear, to come back and cloud your judgment. Britney, I think that's one of the most miraculous things in her entire book is as shitty as things got, she always tapped into that unconditional love. And there's times that she dabbled in other spirituality, but she really ends the book and talks about it's about finding her own joy. It's about finding joy her own way. And that she fully accepts the ability to do that. And I'm going to read to you what freedom means to her now. I'm guessing in the past, freedom meant money and fame and all that. But she realized in the book, she talks about how none of that's real. It's just a facade that covers up the true pain and roboticness of this status place. Here's a quote from one of the last chapters. Freedom means that I get to be as beautifully imperfect as everyone else. And freedom means the ability and the right to search for joy in my own way, on my own terms. It took me a long time and a lot of work for me to feel ready to tell my story. I hope it inspires people on some level and can touch hearts. Since I've been free, I've had to construct a whole different identity. I've had to say, wait a second, this is who I was. Someone passive and pleasing, a girl, and this is who I am now. Someone strong and confident, a woman. Though Britney says she has to construct a whole different identity, I don't think that's where she's at. I think those are the words she uses because I think we really much believe that we're molding who we are, but in fact, she's in a process of remembering her truth. And what I see is that her pendulum is swung. We talk about authenticity, and this whole video has been really the biggest battle you will ever face, which is that of fear and love, which is authenticity. But authenticity sometimes presents itself in false authenticity, and that's where we really have to try hard to be authentic. We have to make sure everybody believes we're being authentic. We have to get a rise out of them. I think Britney is still trying to figure out where authenticity lies without her being locked in a cupboard or on stage commanding a room. Because authenticity really lies in the middle. But she's not on stage. She's no longer locked in a cupboard. She feels this freedom. But freedom can be scary. Freedom, we're not afraid of the darkness, my friend. She's not afraid of the cupboard. As scary as the cupboard seemed in here, that's comfort. She's not afraid of being on stage. That's also comfort. Both sides of the pendulum, right? The place she's truly fearful, the place we all are truly fearful, is in the middle, where unconditional love exists, and there is no excuse for us to believe in pain and suffering and fear and separation. And I really think that's what this book, this journey of Britney is about. And I think a lot of people have used it to pass the buck again and bring up all this crap about Justin and her dad. And don't get me wrong, the things they did are not okay. But the question is, who do you have responsibility over? Is shaming those people going to help you in any way? No, because your subconscious sees them as you. So if you are out there shaming them, shaming Britney, shaming whoever, you're actually shaming yourself first. And I think Britney shows you how powerful your projections can be. especially when someone's on the other end willing to receive projections. When we haven't done our work yet, projections are easy to take in as our own. And that's what happened here. But Britney's on a beautiful journey now, and there's still even more projection on her. I was saying the other day, hey, Britney wrote this book, and I'm reading it, and someone said there's no way she could have wrote that book. Huh? Why? Because again, she's still not presenting in the way people believe she should present. Even this beautiful book and people supporting her and free Britney, there is still a piece of people that sit and judge her. And the reason why is, even though Britney's story has changed, your story hasn't changed, my friend. It goes to show you that no matter what a person is doing, if you have chose them as your projection, whether they are low or high is high, you will always find a way to bring the doubt and shame and fear and guilt out on them that's actually yours. Wow, what a trip. This is filled with so much goodness. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. Watch this video again after you've read it to really help you use this as a healing opportunity. And I think that's what Britney wanted this for. She didn't write this, I don't believe, for a pass the buck, let's make everybody else the villain and me the victim. But it was really her freeing herself from the cupboard and the stage. And now she's in this beautiful place of discovery, and it's very childlike. If you go check her out on Instagram, many people think, again, she looks crazy, but people only think you're crazy when they wish they could be doing what you're doing. When a little piece of them, otherwise it doesn't matter. Like, do you, Britney? We don't care. But you don't feel that you can do you. But she's doing her. So kudos to you, Britney, and appreciate this book so much. I know for myself, we store this in our subconscious. It came in as it was happening to me. But the reality is, it brought up some of my own stuff that I needed to revisit and allow to move through and view from a place of the observer without judgment. And I encourage you to give yourself grace reading this book and to really allow yourself to feel so that you can heal, and to take that observer's perspective of no judgment when you're reading this book, to really just see it for what it is. And what it is an opportunity for you to heal. I mean, that's what Britney did it for. She wrote it for herself. Much love, friend. Make sure to like and subscribe. As always, we go on a weekly trip here where we bust apart the constructs and get to what the truth is. So much love, as always. Remember, you are worth it. Bye.